Hello, agus 100,000 fáilte go bhfuilú. Is mise Muriel McCaskill. So my name is Muriel McCaskill Fisher now, and I'm a native speaker of Scottish Gaelic from the wonderful and beautiful Isle of Skye, Fichit Fernach Guire to be precise. But before I begin, I would like to thank the following people: the Arizona Commission on the Arts, Flagstaff Arts Council, Flagstaff Community Foundation, the City of Flagstaff, and Coconino County. Now, there are many people who claim Scottish roots in America and around the world, and this is one of the things that I always read first so that you all understand exactly how we started with this ethnic cleansing. Writ of removal posted in a Hebridean village, which by the way was 5 miles from where I grew up. To all the crofters in Loughill, take notice that you are hereby duly warned that you will be ready to leave Loughill at 12 o'clock on 4th of August next, with all your baggage but no stock, and proceed to Loch Shneasort, where you will board the ship Midlothian that will take you to Nova Scotia, where you are to receive a free grant of land from the government, from Her Majesty's government. Take further notice that any crofter disobeying this order will be immediately arrested and taken to prison. This order is final, and no appeal to the government will be considered. God save the Queen. This sums up who I am, this iPhone and this piece of peat. So when I tell you that the piece of peat and the phone are part of my makeup, when I was a child, there was no running water in our village. There was no electricity, and everything that we did was crofting like it had been for, well, 200 or 300 years, with carrying water from the well, cutting the peat. Everything was done by hand. Fishing, shearing the sheep. It was all kind of hard labor. And when the electricity came into the glen, you'd think that I would remember it, but actually I don't remember the electricity. And I was already in boarding school by the time they started with the running water. So I just knew buckets, wells, and lamps that had to be lit before the sun went down. And the phone is such an irony, because there is more information in that phone than any human being could possibly ever deal with. So I just feel like it sums up the 2 ages, the 2 centuries that I abridge. So I learned to speak English when I was 6 or 7, and I was sent to school. And so I'm a native speaker of the Gaelic. And it's only when I started, I was illiterate in Gaelic, in fact, for most of my life, until somehow I fell into teaching Gaelic. And then I realized, as I learned to read and write myself just prior to each lesson, I realized what all these aspects of Gaelic. For example, there is no word for yes or no. So you can't say yes, you can't say no. There's no verb to have, so you cannot say have. Things are at you, on you, or with you. What else? It's a verb initial language, so in English you say the man ate the sheep. In Gaelic you say, ate the man the sheep. And it's not a question, it's a verb form. And so these things are very different for native Gaelic, for English speaking, English-based, for people whose native language is English, because it's structured so differently. And French is like English, Spanish is like English, and Italian is like English, but not the Gaelic. So it's always a little unseen obstacle for people who are learning. So don't give up whatever you do. Now, this is just a short moment of Gaelic, and I've put together a few phrases for you in the hope that you might learn them or hear what it sounds like. I've kept it very simple. Camara ha'u. Camara ha'u. How are you? Hakuma. Hakuma. Well. Tahbeliat. Tahbeliat. Thank you. Ha'u bria. Ha'u bria. You are beautiful. Angavu joch. Angavu joch. Will you have a drink? Mashetta hole. Mashetta hole. Please. Slanja. Cheers. Hakrai akamorst. Hakrai akamorst. I love you. I do. Aichiva, which is good night. Now, there are many ways of saying goodbye, but I think Aichiva sounds lovely. And just a note, we never said good morning in the morning. We would ask you many questions. Were you warm enough? Would you like a cup of tea? It's a lovely day. Or mostly, oh, it's a bit damp today, meaning there's torrential rainfall. So I never teach my students how to say good morning. And they try it anyway, and I always respond politely with a, oh, it's grand today, isn't it? Or some such remark. Now, there's a lot more to be said about learning Gaelic, but for this moment here, I just want you to know that the Gaelic is out there, or should I say down here in Tucson for the moment, and I am the person who teaches it. I'm the only native speaker who teaches Gaelic for probably hundreds of miles. Of course, if I was on the islands, that would not be true. And I would just encourage you, if you have Scottish roots or if you have Highland roots, learn some Gaelic. It's fun and it's good for you. And I want to mention that Scotland is also underrepresented in the part of Scotland that has the Doric on the east coast. And that is a language unto itself. It's an Anglo-Saxon based, whereas Gaelic is a Celtic base. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those who come from that part of Scotland. One of the things that I've noticed living in America now is what I call the Disneyfication of all things children. And if you grow up in a primitive environment, everything is absolutely clear to you. You know where your chicken comes from. You know where your fish comes from. So recently remembered these two wee rhymes, wee children's rhymes, from coming down, from down, from down. And so I thought I would tell them to you and then translate them. And then I've got a couple of wee proverbs or words I'm going to give you. All right. Bik, 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 kochrach monet, mashekilje bekke, kurimiri krekke, mashekilje more, bokumi salone. Which means, beep, 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 said the little bird. Who broke my nest? If it was a wee boy, I shall throw him over the cliff. If it was a big boy, I shall drown him in the pool. Okay? And another one, which was played with a piece of grass. It's a specific little game where you behead the other person's plant. Van maherse is taherse in la garu fjord. Ars maherse ri taherse garami gut and drown. Which means, my father and your father were one day cutting hay. Said my father to your father, I shall cut off your nose. And so, yes, there's no beating around the bush with little sparkles and frocks and wands there. It's that, it's straight to it. So, along those lines, around the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a priest, Father Allen, in South Uist, and he collected a lot of Gaelic words. And some enterprising person selected about 50 of them and put them in a wee book with an illustration. And the point of it is that in Gaelic we have one word for this paragraph. And I find it endlessly entertaining in my classes. And so I'm going to read you two. The first one is related to the children. Fitterich. The word is fitterich. When the fire was being smeared and the lights put out, to terrify children, a person would draw the tongs through the ashes, and the greenish-red light from the embers were said to be the fitterich, coming for the children who refused to sleep quietly. Fitterich, one word for all of that. And the other one that I'm really rather fond of is clear hennechin. Clear hennechin. When a troop of bards used to travel in company from the house of one gentleman to another, and whose hospitality they often put to an undue test, they were called the clear hennechin. In other words, they went from house to house drinking all their whiskey and telling stories and moving on to your house. So they had one word for that, for those people. Sláinte voor. You know, sláinte. So, Gaelic whiskey. I came across this from Raphael Holinshead from Holinshead's Chronicles circa 1577. Gaelic whiskey, moderately taken, sloweth age, strengtheneth youth, helpeth digestion, cutteth phlegm, it cureth the dropsy, it poundeth the stone and repelleth gravel, it preserveth the head from whirling. Really? The tongue from lisping, the teeth from chattering, the heart from swelling, the guts from rumbling, the hands from shivering, the sinews from sinking, the veins from crumbling, the bones from aching. It is truly sovereign liquid if it be orderly taken. Well, va mismuinige gullein rut na gago I vulu, agus chane mismuinige gungola shif gullor Gaelic hast, agus mar sin va mikiri prindruf as a chanan, is an guntuk shivulu choboyach agus choprias a ha Gaelic, which is just to give you a bit of Gaelic too, so you can hear how lovely it is. And so I have, as you can imagine, quite a few books of various types for proverbs and poems and everything. So I've found a wee proverb here for you that I find what, and I'm going to read you a wee poem. So, is trua a vandrach a feep. Poor is the bagpipe when widowed. Is lua vertomek fare la voor erich. Swift is the slut's husband over the hill on a bleak day in spring, etc. So now I'm going to read you a poem from this book, which is wonderful. It has Gaelic poems and English translation, and it has very long poems and many very poignant from the wars, from the First World War and from the Second World War, because we lost a lot of islanders. So this one is more modern and short. Fachlan ich vare. Nam vroeter wam in nam grond nam mare, agus so heen nat goon traum a liker de goedrum arm. Agus dachlan, gul, socher nam chlosen an draste sa reist, orig, green, anjef. Maar ich vare, maar nochtigen masje, saxofonichen bicke flautri. Words. Seahorses. I dreamt I was the sea floor and you were the weight of the ocean pressing down on me, your quiet words of love in my ears now and again. Golden, elegant, and strange, like seahorses, like grace notes, tiny floating saxophones. Kevin McNeill wrote that. So, get nach de vriend me gulor Gaelic rief ulukuleir. Although I haven't really spoken enough Gaelic to you, I would like to thank you all very much for attending this event and for staying the course if you did this long. And I would like to thank everybody who helped put this together. All the people, all the hard work, and all the goodwill they put into it. So, moran tain guvule, agus, if you wish to get a hold of me myself, the email address will do. Thank you.